Welcome back, Tying That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is finally my good buddy Ty Franck is back from his adventures around the world.
My adventures abroad.
Adventures abroad.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like Fraggle Rock. You know, you're the journalist guy that goes off into he sneaks through the gadget guy's place that has the dog, you know, and goes and has adventures, and he writes letters to Mosley, or is it Moki? I don't know. Did you see Fraggle Rock? Joseph, did you? Anyway, I'm sorry. Listeners, I'm sorry I wasted your time with this bullshit.
I think that's pretty much our mandate is wasting people's time with bullshit.
that is the mandate of this podcast. It's just waste people's time with bullshit.
Speaking of bullshit, we should segue into our topic for today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, so Wes and I and Joseph were talking about the hearings on potential UFOs, or what do they call them? UAPs now?
Yeah, UAPs.
And talking about what movie we should do that tied into that. And the decision was just do all of them. Do all of the alien invasion movies. And just talk about the Hollywood version of alien invasion versus what these hearings seem to be saying. And just talk about, like, if we're being visited by aliens, what does that mean?
Explain to me why they changed UFO from UAP, or what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the reasoning behind it was. I mean, unidentified flying object, maybe that wasn't specific enough, because that's anything you pick up on radar that you cannot get an identification for is technically a UFO. If you see like a little thing moving across your radar and it was like some kid's like remote control airplane, that's technically a UFO, right? Maybe UAP is more specific.
I learned a long time ago that when I want something to be true, I got to be very careful, because, you know, as a kid, when you're just bored and you want the world to be a movie and you desperately want a paradigm shift in the world, and like, so the idea of aliens or the possibility of aliens is so exciting and so interesting. And so you find yourself just spending so much time going down all these rabbit holes and all these conspiracy theories with UFOs and listening to everything. And it's entertaining and it's fun, but it's kind of like watching Lost. Like, you watch Lost and it's so good the first season and you're involved. Then you realize, like, oh, there's never going to be any closure to this. No. Like, there's never, because there probably isn't anything there. It's like, you know, and so even though I desperately want something like this to happen and I have an open mind, there's just, nothing has fully convinced me yet.
A friend of mine had a word for this, and I'm trying to remember, but I can't remember what it is. But it is the feeling of disappointment you get when the magician explains how his trick works. Because it's always much simpler and much less intriguing than where your brain went when you watched the trick happen. You know, it's one of my favorite scenes, and you've seen Out of Sight, right?
Yeah, that's a good movie.
It is a fantastic movie, but there's a scene in there where the character who's trying to kill the George Clooney character, the Hispanic actor, and he's talking to George Clooney's ex-wife about the magician and how you saw the lady in half. Mm-hmm. And then it's a quick scene, but it's my favorite scene in the whole movie, where the police are dragging him off, and you just hear him going, fake legs, as they're dragging the dude off. And that's that feeling of, you watch something that seems magical when it happens, and then you find out the explanation later, and it's so mundane. It's there's fake legs in the box, or that, you know, there's a hole in the table and the ball went through that, or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. It's so mundane and so much less magical than the appearance that it can be very, very disappointing. And I think a lot of people, before we even get into this, just the psychology behind this is what you were talking about when you were a little kid. Like, you wanted the world to be more magical than it was. So you would watch these things in movies. You're like, I wish that was true. I wish that was really happening, because that would be big. That would be magical.
Right.
And I think there is a danger, as you point out, in engaging with things that you desperately wish were true. Mm-hmm. Because then you lose your ability to be sort of analytical and skeptical.
Yeah.
But having said all of that, as a preface, these guys are going before Congress and they're saying, hey, there's weird shit happening and we don't know what it is. So, you know.
Well, I ended up finding it fascinating on different levels. So I think the guy's name was Travis Walton, the Fire in the Sky guy, the guy that was in Phoenix, and he's driving back with his buddies, and he sees a UFO, and he goes out there. And first of all, I have a really important question, and this goes to you, Joseph, too.
Okay.
Would you be willing to get your butthole violated in order to meet a real live alien? So you could really meet and be involved with an alien, but you know they got.
So do we get to talk to him afterwards and say, what's the fascination with my asshole?
No, you have to talk to him during it. It's like Chevy Chase and Fledge, like Moon River.
I've had my butthole violated just to talk to a proctologist. And proctologists are way less interesting than aliens.
Yeah. So you're saying you would do it? Like, what was the Christopher Walken one? Was it Communion? The movie's not that great, but the scariest scene in an alien movie is in that when he's in the bed and that alien like comes around the corner and you see half the face and it's like peeking in, like, are you asleep? Because I'm gonna probe that butthole. And you see that, it's like ah! And it's so scary. It's like it's Christopher Walken's getting interviewed by a psychiatrist, and he's like reliving when he got abducted by an alien. It's really freaky. It has a lot of freaky parts. The movie's not great as a whole. But anyway, so I find that it's interesting on many levels. Go back to the Fire in the Sky guy. So what's fascinating to me is, number one, because I'm leaning towards that I don't think that it happened, obviously, in the way they said it happened. So what fascinates me is, like, how did they come up with this? And how did his friends pass the lie detector test? And where the fuck was he for 5 days? Where did he go? He completely disappeared. And listen, if I'm drinking with my friends, I have a lot of great, funny ideas and things to do. But day one, I'm like, fuck this. I'm not hiding in the woods with no fucking food for 5 days, you know? And then the fact that they stuck to their story for all of these years and all of these people, and they're saying these things. Now, I'm not saying that I think it's true. I'm saying, what is the explanation? Like, are they aware that they're lying? Were they doing psychedelics and they had like a moment where they like had a common hallucination? Is it our need to feel, to have identity, to have significance, to have importance, to have people listen to us, to have people care about us? So if you tell a UFO story, immediately you have significance. Immediately people want to hear what you have to say. And there's something intoxicating about that.
Especially that particular story, because it got so much press. Obviously, somebody wrote a book, somebody made a movie. I mean, all of that stuff. And there is an embarrassment to being proven that you lied. Right. And most people will avoid that level of embarrassment. But as somebody who comes from a deeply religious background, and I firmly believe the religion I grew up in is a cult, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back on it now, with my greater understanding of sort of how the world works, I watched group delusions happen. I watched them happen, that people get themselves worked up into these psychological frenzies. And there's so much social capital to be gained by having the same experience everyone else is having, that your brain really wants you to be having that experience. And when the brain really wants something to be true, it can just make that thing be true.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the only lens we have for the world around us is our brain. So if you can convince somebody that they will get something that benefits them personally, in some social way or monetary way or whatever it is, if they just believe a certain thing, your brain will go out of its way to try to believe that thing as hard as it can. And that is the danger of this sort of thing, this sort of frenzy that you can get yourself worked up into.
Yeah. And what interests me about Bob Lazar and his is that he's so specific. He's like, there are 9 salvaged UFOs, and we're trying to reverse engineer and understand how the anti-gravity matter machine works. And we use this fuel source called 115, I believe it is. And I'm not an expert on Bob Lazar, but I see him, and you know, I'm watching this under the assumption that it's not true, that it's not real, right? And I'm listening to this, and I'm saying, like, the balls on this guy, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where does this come from? And to be so public, and if he knows it's not true, and then if he is, let's say, if he's delusional in this, does that delusional just play out in this one area of his life? And then, it's interesting because he said he went to Harvard and Caltech, and they're like, never heard of him. I'm like, how do you publicly come out and say you go to Harvard and Caltech, knowing they're going to fucking watch that and listen to that and everything like that? But also, you got to have some understanding of physics. You got to have some understanding to be able to lie on that level, Yeah. So that really, those things kind of blow my mind and kind of hard to explain. Now, the things that really throw a wrench in my gears and really give me pause are people like the David Fravor and Ryan Graves, the F-18 Navy pilots, that have come out and in detail and with radar footage and talk about this craft or some sort that's shaped like a Tic Tac. And when they talk about the maneuvers, I mean, obviously they defy the laws of physics. No matter what the wind speed, that it can just hover in one place and doesn't move, and they don't understand how that could be, and how it could be hovering like 8 feet off the water and not blow up any whitewash in the water. So there's no propulsion like to how it moves. And when it takes off at certain times, I think David Fravor said it's like they were going 4 times the speed of sound, in that your eyes can go 50 miles on the horizon. And usually you say the fastest aircraft in the world can go a certain speed past the speed of sound. You see it just take off and go smaller and smaller, 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 and disappear. But to have something instantly disappear off the thing is unlike anything we've seen before. So what gives me pause, and even Barack Obama is like, look, yes, we've seen some things that we can't explain. And the thing is we're going to try to explain them. So obviously there's things out there that we can't explain. So what gives me pause, or what fascinates me, is like, is this a secret weapon that we have, hopefully? Or is this a secret weapon that the other guys have?
Well, so
or is this like some shit?
And there have been, all through history, there have been weird things that we couldn't explain, right? For a long time, ball light was this weird, unexplained phenomenon that people attributed to witches and magic and the devil and all sorts of things.
What is it? Ball light?
Ball lightning?
What is that?
Yeah, it's a specific kind of lightning effect that's very rare, but it does happen. And it got attributed to all sorts of stuff. And then it turned out, no, it's just a weather effect. It's very rare and it's very weird, right? My feeling is that in general, unexplained phenomenon, obviously something weird has happened. But in general, the whole thing of like, when you hear hoofbeats, picture horses, don't picture unicorns. That's kind of where my head goes is there's something weird happening. My brain goes to, what's the horse explanation for this? We don't have to jump straight to unicorns. Because so far, every time we've had an unexplained phenomenon and eventually found an explanation for it, so far, it has never been magic and it has never been aliens.
Right.
So far, those two explanations for every weird thing that we've found have failed every single time. Now, that's not to say that will always be true. There could be the first time something happens, everything had a first time, right? And we could be coming up on the first time where we go, oh shit, this was aliens. But that's not the horse explanation. That's the unicorn explanation.
Yeah. Because they're so convincing to me and so compelling. They don't fit the profile.
Yeah.
I think they were, they're commanders in the United States Navy, F-18 pilots. One guy's Ryan Graves, he's an engineer, brilliant guys. And they don't need it. They don't need this attention. They don't need, so obviously there's something that they can't understand. And it's not like, hey, I saw something once and I got some grainy footage. It's like, no, we've seen this every day and we got it on radar and we released the radar footage and the Pentagon have released it to us, a lot of it, not all of it. And there's no follow-up. There's no follow like with them. And that's what the whole thing was about, is like, either this is some new weapon that we should be worried about, or it's something else, and then science should be concerned about it. But to not be interested in it, and at the end of the day, I obviously we are interested in it, maybe not on his level, but there is going to be an interest in it.
Yes, it's interesting stuff, and I'm very excited to see what ultimately the explanation winds up being. But one of the things that I find very interesting, so I'm a big follower of aerospace. I love fighter planes, right?
Yeah.
And so when the 5th generation fighters were coming out, the F-22 and the F-35, I was following the development of those planes before they ever did their first test flights. The technology involved, I think, is fascinating, right? I find it very interesting that for a stretch in the 90s, everybody was seeing UFOs. And the UFO that they were seeing was this weird triangle thing. And now we've recently released the concept drawings for the 6th generation fighters that they call the NGAD, Next Generation Air Dominance Fighters. They're fucking triangles. So my thing is like, did they have early prototypes of this airframe that they were flying out of like Area 51 or one of those places? People were seeing this weird ass thing that could move at Mach 4 or Mach 5 that looked like a triangle, didn't have vertical stabilizers, because every airplane we see has vertical stabilizers. These don't. But now we see the Lockheed Martin concept drawings or the Northrop Grumman concept drawings of the NGAD. It's a triangle with no vertical stabilizers. I'm like, maybe that's what people were seeing, right? Like we were testing that airframe design out in the desert. These things were zipping around in the sky. People were seeing, we go, what the? It does not look like an airplane. And so you see it and you go, that's not an airplane. That's a UFO. It doesn't look anything like an airplane. But you look at the concept drawings of the NGAD now, it doesn't look like an airplane. It looks like a triangle.
Right.
And so when I see this stuff where it's like, oh, it this weird tic-tac thing that was hovering without making waves or whatever, like I'm like, okay, like my head goes to, what is that thing that's being tested that people keep seeing?
Yeah.
That looks like that.
But that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I want to know what that thing is. And I want to know, like, when's that coming out? And that's ours? And, like, when can we read about it? And hopefully it's not some other guy that's against us. Hopefully they don't have that technology. But I'm sure some of our listeners, they probably have really good opinions and takes on this. I'd be looking forward to hear what they say because I'm not, like, a conspiracy theory expert. Like, I've read a lot about like these different guys like Travis Walton or Bob Lazar. I think his name is Travis Walton. But the F-18 pilots that are seeing this thing is compelling to me because I'm like, okay, what is this? And if it was some kind of testing or some kind of secret thing, why wouldn't the Navy just be like, shut the fuck up? Now here's where, and I promise to the listeners, we are eventually going to start talking about sort of the movie versions of this. Yeah. We're just laying the groundwork right now, but not to put anyone on the spot. But I have some very good friends that are high-level engineers, like work at top government labs, have PhDs. Right, I'm right here.
Yeah, and you have PhDs in engineering, all that stuff, and have the craziest religious beliefs I've ever heard, and will absolutely swear on a stack of whatever holy book they choose that they've seen these things that lead them to believe that these weird-ass religious beliefs are true. Just because you have enormous credibility in one area does not mean that credibility extends to every area. Just because you have a PhD in engineering and enormous skills in that area and enormous credibility in that area doesn't mean that when you start explaining your insane religious beliefs to me, that I'm automatically going to assume you know what you're talking about. Yes, these are accomplished men. They are educated men. They have enormous amount of credibility in that area. That doesn't mean that whatever they assume they saw is automatically got credibility, right?
Well, no, I would disagree with that because I think the thing they saw was within the realm of their competence, within the realm of their expert,
maybe
their ability, being able to have an understanding of how machines work in the air and what violates the laws of how things should be is something. Now, I'm not arguing that there's something from another world or from another planet or a different species. But what I'm saying is they witnessed a new technology. Now,
or they witnessed a very compelling
bird, like the fucking baddest motherfucking illusion. Bird that ever existed.
No, or they witnessed a very compelling optical illusion.
Every day?
Sure.
Every day, the radar footage that they have witnessed the same optical illusion. Well, and the multiple F-18 pilots that have saw it, that have been on record, that are coming out, have the same optical illusion.
You don't know.
Listen, I understand the power of suggestion. Okay, I remember one night I was at my grandmother's house and I watched Flowers in the Attic, and I remember I was sleeping on her couch,
thinking about how hot your sister was.
No, I was thinking about how hot my grandmother was.
Oh, okay.
So I was laying on my couch and I looked over and I was like half asleep, half awake, and I looked at the chair at the foot of the couch. There was a chair right at the foot of the couch, and I saw that old grandmother sitting in that fucking couch.
Yeah.
And I stood up and I was trying to get my mind like to clear my eyes, whatever. And the grandmother stood up like this, and I ran into, and then, as I got older, I realized I was half awake, half asleep. And I was so terrified of that thing my mind imagined that thing that I saw. So I understand that. But if I saw that every fucking day and everybody that was with me saw it and we examined it and I had it on radar, on infrared camera in the thing or whatever, then I would start being like, okay, there's something here. It doesn't mean that there's aliens or anything extraterrestrial. It means that there's something here that's a mystery that I don't understand yet.
And I'm not arguing those guys didn't experience something.
Right.
Obviously, they experienced something, but we just don't know what that thing is.
Right.
I think the biggest argument against the explanation for these things as aliens is that if you understand physics at all, you understand that the amount of energy it takes to travel across space, if you were coming from another star to our star using some sort of physical spaceship that traveled, right? And I'm not talking about like quantum teleportation, anything like that. I'm just talking about like you put thrust out one end of the ship and it goes in the other direction. The amount of energy it takes to do that would be so much greater than any possible resource you could get by getting there, right? That you start looking at like how much energy it takes to move giant spaceships or even small spaceships across vast interstellar spaces. It's like the energy output of like a star, right? To do that. So that's the argument against it. But it's an argument that comes from they have to obey the same laws of physics we have to obey. That can't be true because it isn't true right now argument, which I understand that's a specious argument. Like, if they discovered a way to teleport spaceships, then my argument about energy goes away, right? And I understand that I'm arguing from the perspective of my understanding of physics, which is a very human understanding of physics based on all the stuff we've discovered so far. Right. And it precludes that there are other new things that we will discover in the future that make all these things make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
I fully understand that.
Yeah. And in saying that, like, I have an open mind. Yeah. Sometimes my mind is too open. And I would love for some of these things to happen, but to me, I haven't seen any evidence that's compelling. Yeah. I have testimony and heard testimony that's compelling.
But any lawyer will tell you eyewitness testimony is the worst evidence you can have.
Well, that's why I'm having this conversation. But there was the movie Contact when they say if other life doesn't exist, then that's a terrible waste of space. Yep. So I think the size of the universe.
Oh, I think there absolutely is other life out there.
Yeah, I think the size of so I think the size of the universe, it's highly probable that there is life out there.
There may be life in our solar system.
But there's that the fact that there's life out there, it's highly probable to me. Yeah. But based on my limited human understanding of where I am right now, it seems unprobable that something could get to us, right? Because the distance is so far. Now, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. This is just some dipshit that's like thinking out there. So somebody could say, well, you can use black holes, or you're thinking very limited in your of how thrust and propulsion works and those things, and you could be right, but that's just the way I see it. Let's do these movies.
Well, I want to run through it. So I think there's a couple of different kinds of movies, of alien invasion movies. There is the alien invasion as set up for a horror movie, right? Which is The Quiet Place and It and Killer Clowns from Outer Space and that sort of thing, right? You've got the alien invasion as sci-fi movie, which is like aliens are coming here to like probe us or steal our women or steal our resources or whatever. Take our jobs, right? And then you've got the alien invasion as war movie, right? The aliens show up, we have to fight them, which is like War of the Worlds. That's or Independence
Pacific
Day.
Rim. Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah.
So those, I think those are the main ones, and the ones we've been talking about. So I think Fire in the Sky plays out as a horror movie, right?
Well, what would be interesting is if we compose our top 5. So choose our favorite of each one of those sub genres that you just mentioned. And then hopefully that'll equal a top 5 within those subgenres.
If we just go through them real quick, I think Quiet Place is a great horror movie.
Yes,
I think
fantastic.
Like the alien element of it is nonsense, but it doesn't matter because all the alien element is there to do is set up the rules of this horror movie, and I think it does a really good job with that. I think it's a very haunting movie. Very well done. I really like that one. Have you seen Attack the Block?
No.
Okay.
That's one I've thought about watching it many times, but no, I have not seen it yet.
So Attack the Block has, it's a special movie to me because it is literally the only movie Dominique Tipper and I ever agreed on.
Right.
Dom and I have completely different taste in movies, every other movie, but she loved Attack the Block because she grew up in that sort of housing.
Her brothers talk, they sound just like their slang, the way they talk.
Just like the Attack the Block guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I do love that one. You and I are both fans of Critters. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is probably the best alien invasion as horror movie ever made. I think it's so creepy. It's so haunting.
The Donald Sutherland one.
I love the Donald Sutherland one. That's my favorite one.
I do too. That's my favorite one too. 100%.
Yeah. The other one that I would add to this list for Alien Invasion as horror movie, Joseph, is Day of the Triffids, which is a British. I think it was it a movie or was it a miniseries? But anyway, it's like a British alien invasion where, have you ever seen that one, Wes? Day of the Triffids? You should check it out. It starts out with there's a meteor shower and everybody knows this meteor shower is coming. So everybody's outside looking for it, right? Because it's been on the news. There's going to be this huge, incredibly bright meteor shower. Everybody goes outside. They're all looking at the night sky when it happens.
Yeah.
And everybody who was looking up at the meteor shower when it happened is blind. So like 90% of the world's population is blind now. Right. And the meteors brought with them these plants that are these like alien carnivorous plants that move slow. And like, if you could see, there would be no problem. You could just get away. Right. But everybody's blind. Yeah. So it's like it blinds the whole world and then presents the world with this threat that is very dangerous to blind people.
What a spooky idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because these plants are slowly moving. Well, hello. I'll be slowly moving towards that too. I was talking about the plant.
Yes.
They slowly move towards you and you can't see them.
You can't see them.
Cool. Yeah. I think A World's End is in the horror alien one.
Yeah.
Do you think Pennywise is of the race of the killer clowns?
I think the killer clowns and Pennywise probably at least know of each other.
Or do they probe each other's buttholes?
I have a feeling that Pennywise is just flat out probing everybody. I think Pennywise is just all about the probe.
I don't know. I loved Quiet Place. I really, and we rarely kind of pick modern movies.
Yeah.
But that did everything I want a movie to do at the theater. I thought it was thrilling. I thought it was compelling. I thought it was so interesting. I love it. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, that's like a fun B movie to watch like late at night.
I don't even think it's a B movie. I think it's like a Z movie, but it's so fun. It's so
fun. Yeah. So fun. And so like when you're a kid, like late at night, you're like, what is this? This is
what
so
the fuck
bizarre.
is happening right now? Oh, the other one that's sort of like that is The Stuff. Did you ever see The Stuff? Yeah.
Yes. I used to have
like
The Stuff on
movie.
VHF.
Yeah, that B movie, there's some weird alien shit that's fucking us up and we don't understand it. So I'd put The Stuff on that list too, Joseph.
Now, you know who directed Fire in the Sky, right?
I do know who directed Fire in the Sky. I also know that he was married to Mary Lou Henner.
And what episode did he direct for us? It was the one where we were in the...
He directed a couple episodes for us. He directed
4 episodes.
Yeah, he directed, I was going to say, he directed
season
a couple
1, episode 5.
Yep.
He directed 4 episodes?
Yeah.
Rock Bottom.
Yeah, so he directed 5 and 6 in season 1.
Here There Be Dragons and The Monster and the Rocket.
Yeah.
Episode 11 and 12 in season 2.
Oh, that's right, because he did. I had a good time with Rob. I really liked Rob. And
Rob is a fun guy. Yep.
And he loves movies and he has great stories.
Yep.
Well read.
Yep.
Really interesting guy. Dude, this is tough because Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Donald Sutherland version is just a classic.
Well, so let's put Quiet Place and Invasion of the Body Snatchers as our 2 picks from this list. And if we're trying to make the top 5, let's see what there may be that there's not multiples in some of the other lists. So the Alien Invasion as war movie is one of the most classic sci-fi concepts, right?
Oh, wait a second, Ty. Hold on, we missed something.
What?
The Thing in the horror.
The Thing. Yeah, The Thing.
That's number one.
Yeah, The Thing needs to go up there. Now, the war movie version goes all the way back to, War of the Worlds, right? Which is like, that story's, a couple hundred years old at this point? Or over 100
years old?
I mean, when was War of the Worlds written?
It was in the 30s.
No, the movie was made.
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells. Was it written in the 30s?
Are you talking about the radio with the radio thing with Orson Welles?
No, I'm talking about the book.
Oh,
I think it's 1895.
1895, dude.
Wow.
We're coming up on 150 years old for that story, right? So it is an old ass book. But what I'm saying is the idea of aliens come to our planet and they come here for the purpose of conquering us at like a war is one of the oldest sci-fi concepts there is. And tons of movies have been made of that, and some of them, and a lot of them are not great. But all of them seem to be fun. Like Battle Los Angeles, not a good movie, but I had fun the first time I watched it, right? Now, Battleship, I did not have fun the first time I watched it. I thought it was just terrible.
Edge of Tomorrow, I fucking loved.
I like Edge of Tomorrow, too. Edge of Tomorrow is great. I'm also a big fan of, I'm like one of the 7 people who like this movie, but I love Mars Attacks. That movie cracks me up every time I watch it.
I wasn't a big fan of Mars Attacks.
That movie makes me laugh.
Wait, where's Close Encounters?
Close Encounters is not a.
They're not mean.
Close Encounters is not a war movie.
Not a war movie.
No. I'm just saying in general. I mean, I thought it was like an alien coming to visit.
I think that's a different genre. I think that is the aliens are here to meet us. I think that's E.T. I think that's Close Encounters. I think that's Contact, Starman. The aliens are not a threat. They're here to meet us.
The aliens that are in the news right now, we don't know if they're a threat or not. So we got to include everything. We got to include all the genres.
So we need a new category. Aliens are here to be our friends.
And I'll stand by this. Starman is so underrated. I watched that again last night, and that is such a fantastic movie. And John Carpenter being able to tell a compelling love story with all his other talents, the guy that made Halloween.
Yeah.
The thing about Jeff Bridges in this movie is that movie shot out of sequence. And he slowly evolves into like a fully formed human. How the fuck does he keep track of like, okay, how am I talking in this? And like, am I fully walking upright in this? Or am I really, and it's just, it's so good.
It's one of the pieces of evidence we have that Jeff Bridges is one of the best actors we've had in the last 100 years.
And he's been so underrated for so long.
Yeah, I agree. He's one of the best. What else belongs on this list? You could say The Day the Earth Stood Still belongs on that list because that is the aliens coming to give us a second chance because they're coming here going, here's a thing you need to fix about your shit. And if you can fix it, we can all be friends. If you don't fix it, we're just going to eradicate you. And there's no war. Yeah, we just win automatically, right?
Yeah.
Pacific Rim goes into war?
Pacific Rim definitely goes into war.
I was not a fan.
What? Oh, wow.
There's something about I don't like the genre of where humans climb into machines and fight big things. Like there's something about that's just not compelling to me.
I think Life Force goes up in the horror one.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Go ahead, Wes.
That's
what's
Ty
interesting
candy.
to you?
Like Ty loves him some Life Force.
dude, that is. If you appreciate the female form, I don't care what your gender or sexual orientation is. If you appreciate the female form as a work of art, that's just artwork right there.
Yeah, I was chatting with some guys, asking them what they thought their favorite alien invasion film was, and I was like, "Say, have you ever seen Life Force?" I don't know, maybe I did. And then I said, "No, you would know.
Yes, if you saw Life Force, you would know.
If you saw Life Force."
Correct.
I was really wanting to hear your thoughts. Close Encounters is a curious movie to me because I love the movie and I watch it all the time. But as a kid, it surprises me that I liked it so much as a kid because like the aliens don't try to kill anybody or there's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's kind of like the climax of the movie is like making contact with these aliens and they're friendly and it's like this massive spaceship and the music and everything like that. And so it was always interesting to me why I love that movie so much, and I don't think I've ever talked to you about it. So what are your thoughts on that movie?
I mean, well, it's beautiful to look at. The design of the ships when they're finally revealed, they're beautiful. They're awesome when they're on screen. And I also think that you have some really extraordinary performances. I mean, Dreyfuss losing his mind. It's fascinating to watch. You know, when he keeps trying to make the mountain out of stuff. You know,
yeah. There's a strong mystery, like a really compelling mystery that pulls you through.
Yeah, there's a strong mystery, and it really is a story about a guy who's had something terrible happen to him. But his mind remembers it as maybe not terrible, but extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And he's losing his mind until he can figure out what it is that happened. Mm-hmm. And that pulls you through the whole story. You know, what happened to this guy?
Yeah. And the mystery, what happened to that kid, and with that poltergeist scene where all the toys come alive and they're being played with in the air and they're like, you know, being fully realized. That was really scary. But what really piqued your interest of the mystery is the reaction the little boy has to whatever it was he's looking at. He had zero fear of it, and he just had wonder. Right? And you're like, what is that? You know, we've seen so many monster movies for so long that you're like, wait, what? He's not scared of it? You know, I thought that was really
well,
cool.
that is the thing that alien movies always have to deal with. You know, whenever there's human contact with aliens, is like, humans are so fucking irrational. We are so irrational that I think if an actual alien showed up and started doing weird shit, most of humans would go, "Oh, it's a demon."
Yeah.
Right? Like our head goes to like you know, it must be some spirit or demon or something rather than another life form.
My favorite moment of Independence Day was like, please stop shooting your shotguns at the UFOs. It's so irrational. Like, what is a shotgun going to do? It won't even reach it. You know?
Well, but that is very human. If you get outside the city limits in almost any state in the country, if you get outside the city limits, everything that can be shot has been shot. Like, everything has a bullet hole in it, like everywhere.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, humans just love to shoot stuff.
Right.
But evolution, I'm curious, I guess, in a way, evolution kind of goes into the war category, right? Oblivion, that's an interesting one because Oblivion is okay. So the recurring theme in a lot of alien invasion stories, and actually, I sent Wes and Joseph a link to a guy who actually talks about this before we did this. But a recurring theme in alien invasion stories is that the aliens came to Earth to get something that they want, some resource that they need, right? What the video I sent to Wes and Joseph talks about is how ludicrous that concept is. That the idea that you would spend the energy to travel interstellar spaces to get any sort of resource is ridiculous because resources tend to be pretty evenly distributed across the universe, and every solar system has kind of the same stuff in it. So like if you ran out of, you know, nickel in your home system or in your home planet, the idea that you would travel hundreds of light years to find a planet with more nickel is ridiculous because there's almost certainly going to be more sort of nickel in your own solar system that you could go get.
Yeah, he gave the analogy of going to Wendy's. He's like, he's like, I would not go to Wendy's in Minnesota to get, like, I would pass 2 Wendy's before I got to the one or hundreds of Wendy's.
Yeah, it's like he talks about traveling 1,800 miles to get a Wendy's burger. You know, it's like there's plenty of Wendy's. You don't need to go 1,800 miles to get one. So, but it is a reoccurring theme, and Oblivion falls into that, where it's like the aliens are stealing all the resources from Earth. And I think in Oblivion, aren't they stealing the water? I think they're stealing the water, right?
Yeah, it was water.
Yeah, which is crazy because there is so much water just sort of floating around out in space. You just go get that. Why would you come to Earth? But I think Oblivion is it's the war one because it is they've come to steal our resources and we have to defeat them, right? Signs is definitely in the horror category.
Did you see Life?
Yeah. With Deadpool.
Does that count?
It also has an actress that you guys love.
Oh yeah. Wait, is Life here?
I don't think it doesn't count as an invasion because it's just sort of like
they found it in space.
Yeah. It doesn't make it to Earth.
The Blob is horror, of course.
You know what's sad though about the Blob?
Yep.
I was like, when I was talking with some guys, it's like most people, like younger would not even know what that means if you said The Blob. Like how few people know that movie.
Well, there've been two versions. You also have the Kevin Dillon version of The Blob. But I would say They Live is a war movie because it's not a war movie in the classic sense. I would say it's an occupation movie. We are an occupied country in They Live, right? They've invaded, they've taken over our power structures, and we live as occupied citizens in a country occupied by a hostile foreign power.
But we're unaware.
Yeah, but that's part of how they occupy us, right? Joseph wants to do Battlefield Earth because he's a
I don't want to do Battlefield Earth.
He's a huge fan of Battlefield Earth. He's a giant L. Ron Hubbard fan.
Dianetics.
That's all he talks about. Enough with L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, have
Joseph.
you looked into the Church of Scientology, Joseph?
The Hidden Horror?
No, but I did not realize there is one in Nashville, which I was like, what?
How did you know there was?
Because I was downtown Nashville.
Oh, The Hidden's a horror movie.
The Hidden is definitely a horror movie. Yeah. So now, out of these, do we have some favorites? Obviously, I think. I mean, even to this day, I think E.T. is one of the greatest
friendly E.T. movies. Yeah,
kid-friendly movies ever made. You know, I mean, we all watched it 1,000 times when we were kids when it came out.
Yeah,
and I think, and the book was written by a friend of mine, but I think Arrival is one of the best sci-fi movies made in the last 20 years.
Are we in the horror? Because I think The Thing is obviously going to be our favorite. And then number one, are we doing top 10?
Well, it's however many you want to do. I
would say top 10 because there's going to be way more than 5.
I agree on The Thing. I think The Thing is it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made. And it also just happens to be a sci-fi alien movie.
It'd be interesting to see how many horror makes it in the top 10, how many war makes it in the top 10, and how many friendly makes it to the top 10.
Yeah. Life Force gets my vote just because it's the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the list.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, for sure. Yeah. And specifically the Donald Sutherland Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I think is an incredible movie. Incredible horror film.
I was not a huge fan of The Hidden.
So The Hidden is pure B-movie cheese, but I love it.
Yeah.
I love the cheesiness of it.
It is definitely a product of the 80s. I mean, just like Critters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like The Hidden. And then in the war category, I like Wes. I'm a big fan of Edge of Tomorrow. I think it's a really well-made movie. I think Tom Cruise is great in it.
So good.
Yeah, They Live obviously is a classic of the genre.
Independence Day.
I'm going to make a controversial argument. We all hate this movie now. Everybody decided they hate this movie now. But when Independence Day came out, it was a juggernaut.
It was huge.
I remember my friends going to see that movie 3, 4, 5 times at the theater. I remember when the DVD of Independence Day came out, it was like the number one selling DVD for like a year. That thing was gigantic.
That's fair.
So anything else from War?
I'm a big War of the Worlds fan just because I think it's a classic. I didn't love.
Are you talking the book?
No, well, the book is
the
a
original
classic,
movie,
but the movie from the 50s. Yeah, I think is a classic.
I grew up with that one as well.
Yeah. I didn't love the remake, the Tom Cruise remake, but I find that story very compelling. The thing that makes War of the Worlds unique, I think, is that they don't come from another star system. That it's not like the Alpha Centaurians fly their battle cruisers over and attack the Earth. It's literally the closest neighbor in our own solar system attacks us, which kind of actually that makes sense. Like if you're in the same solar system, invading another planet to get their resources actually starts making sense. And I love that about War of the Worlds, that it's like the Martians live on this old planet that's all dried up now, and they've lost all their resources. They're looking down at Earth and they're going, "Hey, let's go get their shit." I really like that element of the story.
Are you a Contact fan? I don't think Contact belongs in here, but I'm just curious. Did you read the book, or are you a fan of the movie?
I appreciated the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think Carl Sagan is a brilliant science educator. I found that book to be very dry. it did a poor job of making me fall in love with the characters. And I think the movie also suffers from that a little bit. It's just a little dry for me.
I assume Close Encounters.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
And Starman.
Dude, stop trying to make fetch happen.
Dude, Starman's happening, man. That is such an underrated movie. Listen, all these movies that we're talking about right now, every time I go back and watch an old movie, I will read about it. Like I go and I read articles that people write about it. People do YouTube videos about that movie. You learn new things. Starman is like, there's not a lot to read about. And nobody talks about Starman.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about Starman. And it's like, again, Jeff Bridges' performance is unbelievable in that movie. But when I go back and try to read about it or see, like, there's just not a lot out there about it.
Yeah, and which is fascinating because it is directed by John Carpenter, I would say one of the most famous directors in American cinema. It stars the dude from The Big Lebowski and Marion from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's about aliens, and somehow nobody watches that movie. Like every element of it, you would think that it would be much more in the sort of consciousness, the movie-going consciousness, but it's not.
And it has a 77 Mustang in it, and nobody talks about it.
It's so under the radar somehow.
77 Cobra Mustang with the racing stripe.
You know what movie we're forgetting?
Battlefield Earth? You already brought it up. Stop trying to make Battlefield Earth happen.
Stop with the Battlefield Earth.
Alien invades. Now, it doesn't say that alien has to be from another world, right? Could be from across the pond, somebody named Hans.
Oh, you're saying Hans Gruber invaded America?
Come on, Die Hard.
You have critters there, right? Would you choose? Would you choose if we did like a B movie top 10? Would you choose Critters over Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
So I like Killer Clowns better as a B movie because it's so gory. It's so over the top, ridiculous.
The cotton candy.
Yeah, it's so over the top. Yeah,
and it has, what was it? Was it he the dean in Animal House as the sheriff?
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh my
Remember
god.
he used him as a hand puppet?
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, if we had to give some honorable mentions for B, Killer Clowns or Critters would be up there. So our honorable mention definitely goes to Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I think so. It's so over the top. It's so ridiculous.
The fact that they made it is just awesome.
The fact that it exists. Exactly. Yeah. All right. So what's our list here?
Let me get everything up there. I don't know if you actually want to rank them. But
no, I don't think so. It's too big of a list to rank.
Alrighty, here's our top 10.
E.T., The Thing, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Donald Sutherland edition, Life Force, Edge of Tomorrow, Independence Day, War of the Worlds, They Live, Close Encounters, and Arrival. Honorable mention, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah, and I think anyone who hasn't seen any of those movies, they're all great examples of the Hollywood version of Aliens from Outer Space. Are aliens from outer space actually visiting our planet? Wes and I don't fucking know, but it is. I agree with Wes that it's an interesting conversation to be having.
Yes, I'm glad they're having the conversation. I want it to be true, and I can talk about it, and I can switch perspectives. So if I'm drinking with some friends and we're staying up at night, I can act as if that it and go deep dive of like that what that is. But if you if you said okay, you're going to wager $1 million if an alien has visited and anybody has seen it, if aliens are flying those Tic Tacs or anything or any type of UFO sighting from an actual being from another planet, I would bet $1 million that no. That it's our imaginations.
Speaking of, I did look up why they changed from UFO to UAP.
Why?
Because UFO is unidentified flying object, which implies that there is a physical thing there. UAP, they're doing, it's because it's unidentified aerial phenomenon, because what they have discovered is in the past, many of the things that we thought were flying objects actually turned out to be some other phenomenon, like a lighting effect or a weather effect or something that isn't actually an object, but that creates the illusion of an object. That's why they changed it to be more sort of a general category that includes things that actually exist plus things that were, illusions or hallucinations or weather effects or things that are explained in that way also fall in there. Okay, so Joseph wants us to look at the patron top 5. Again, there's a lot of crossover. They live, they know us. Edge of Tomorrow, agreed. War of the Worlds, agreed. The Thing, agreed. And Life Force. See, the patrons know me, man. The patrons fucking know me.
I feel like Ty is so seen right now. It's such a special thing. Listen, what the greatest Patreons in the world, man. That's a special thing. They nailed every one of those.
There is a bond. They know us. All right, so we talked about aliens. We don't know shit about aliens. Maybe they exist, maybe they don't. Seems unlikely, but who fucking knows? But cinema is filled with fantastic alien invasion stories. Go out and watch a bunch of them, and you want to cross everything that you haven't seen off your list because when the aliens do invade, we're fucked.
Oh yeah, that Expanse idea of to kind of go against what that guy's talking about, because one of the things that he.
By the way, so the person we're talking about is a guy named Ryan Macbeth, who does military analysis on YouTube. Hey Joseph, can you post the link to Ryan's little thing in the YouTube thing, so that people can watch it if they want. Anyway, so Ryan.
Yeah, because what you said, Ty, when you kind of explained the alien beings at the end, is like, they're just making a highway and we're in the way.
Yeah.
They have there's just no consideration or consciousness of that we exist. Like they're just making a highway and we happen to be in the way.
Yeah. I mean, the illustration we use in the book is that when we're laying blacktop for a highway, if we blacktop over the top of an anthill, that is the apocalypse for that anthill. They all die, right? We don't even know we did it.
Right. Thank you guys for hanging out. We love you. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.